to the Deep Dive, where we take the information you've shared with us and, well, help you cut through the noise. Today, we're plunging into a collection of recent cybersecurity stories. Some maybe far less alarming than they first appear. Others show some incredibly clever new tactics from bad actors. Our mission for this deep dive is really to get to the true heart of these headlines and give you the actionable insights you need.
Yeah, it's a great mix today. We're going from debunking some pretty widespread myths to understanding the evolving landscape of digital threats. We'll look at how information can get twisted, sometimes not even on purpose, and then we'll pivot to some very real vulnerabilities and exploits that are, still posing risks, often in surprising ways. It's about getting the full picture.
Okay, let's unpack this first big one then. The headlines were screaming 16 billion passwords leaked. I mean, that's a number designed to send shivers down anyone's spine. Sounds utterly catastrophic, like the digital world just imploded.
Right. It absolutely does. But the reality behind that alarming figure is actually far more nuanced. So this story, it first gained traction from, I think it was cybernews.com. And it claimed a massive new data set had suddenly appeared online. Painted a picture of a fresh pile of passwords, social media, corporate platforms, everything. But the really critical word in that initial reporting was appeared.
It appeared, okay.
Yeah.
And that distinction, appeared versus newly compromised, that seems to have gotten lost in translation for a lot of the mainstream media, didn't it? Caused quite a stir.
It certainly did. You had cybersecurity pros, researchers quickly confirming that, look, due to some maybe poor wording initially and just the internet hype cycle, news outlets ran with this like it was some unprecedented brand new breach. The truth, this supposed 16 billion entry list. It was really just a big compilation of old data sets.
Old data sets, like from where?
From things we already knew about.
Yeah.
Info stealer malware campaigns, other leaks that have been floating around for a while.
So the actual passwords, the credentials themselves, they weren't new exposures. They were just old ones, kind of scooped up and repackaged.
Exactly. That's a huge difference for anyone trying to figure out their risk, right?
Absolutely.
These were previously exposed credentials.
Yeah.
Just aggregated and put back out there. And it really highlights a crucial point. How fast fear, uncertainty, and doubt, FUD can spread when the details get missed in the initial rush.
Yeah.
Even from seemingly reputable sources. So this whole incident, it's really a stark reminder for all of us about critically evaluating information.
Right.
You need to seek confirmation, look at multiple expert opinions before reacting to those big, scary headlines.
Okay, so that's the password myth busted. Now, moving from that, we shift focus to something very real, a persistent threat that just, won't seem to go away. Our sources flagged a new addition to CISA's Known Exploited Vulnerabilities catalog, the KEV list. Now, normally that signals something incredibly urgent, right? Something current.
Exactly. That's usually what it means.
But what's really remarkable here, this specific vulnerability, it's actually over 2 years old.
It is. Which, it definitely raises an important question. Why is an old vulnerability making headlines and getting added to such a critical list now?
Okay.
We're talking about CDE 2023-0386, first reported back in 2023. And it was quickly ID'd as critical. Has a CVSS score of 7.8, which is high severity. It's a privilege escalation flaw in the Linux kernel.
Okay, Linux kernel privilege escalation. That sounds like a direct path for an attacker to get, full system control. Can you walk us through how this one actually works, the mechanics of it?
Sure. So at its core, it's an improper ownership management vulnerability in the Linux kernel, specifically within something called the overlay FS subsystem.
Overlay FS, okay.
Yeah. So what happens is unauthorized access was found for executing a special kind of file, a set UI file, that has capabilities. Imagine a user, maybe a low-privilege user, copies a specially crafted file from what's called a NoSUID app, basically a place where executable shouldn't be able to change user ID.
Right.
Copies it into another mount. This action triggers what they call a UID mapping bug.
A UID mapping bug. And the impact of that bug is?
The impact is that this local user, someone already on the system, but with limited permissions, can escalate their privileges. They can effectively gain root access or, similar high-level control over the machine.
Wow. Okay, so an attacker just needs that initial foothold, that local access, and this old bug gives them the keys to the kingdom, basically. And CISA adding it now, what's the significance of that specific timing?
Well, when CISA, that's the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, adds a vulnerability to their KEV catalog, It's a big deal. It means all U.S. federal, civilian, executive branch agencies are mandated to fix this, to remediate it by a certain date. It's not just a suggestion, it's a requirement with hard deadlines.
Right, okay, that federal mandate. That immediately makes me think about the wider implications. If the government agencies are being told, fix this now, what does that signal for everyone else? Businesses, organizations?
It acts as a really strong recommendation, a critical benchmark for non-government companies and orgs too. They should absolutely prioritize fixing these issues. And the reason it's being added today, despite being over 2 years old, is precisely because it's still actively being exploited out in the wild.
Still, after 2 years.
Still.
Yeah.
Right now. Which tells us that, unfortunately, many groups, many organizations are still a significant risk because they haven't patched this old flaw. It's like finding a key to an old, forgotten back door in what you thought was a secure building, and discovering that door is still unlocked in lots of places.
That is incredibly concerning. An old bug still actively being used by attackers. So for you listening, especially if you manage Linux systems, what's the bottom line here, the essential call to action?
Yeah, the crucial takeaway is this. All Linux kernels with versions before 6.2 RC6 are affected by this CVE. So if you're running Linux, you absolutely need to check your kernel versions. Updating as needed is, well, it's fundamental, it's urgent, it's your primary defense against this known active threat.
All right. Now for something maybe a bit more insidious, a clever new trick bad actors are pulling that really shows how they constantly adapt. We've talked before about how Google ads get abused, right? Like linking directly to phishing sites. I think we even mentioned how back in early 2025, some ads were hiding links to those kinds of fake login pages.
That's right.
But new research, this time from Malwarebytes Labs, shows an even, well, fresher and trickier abuse.
Yeah, this really connects to the bigger picture, how attackers keep evolving their methods. This time, it isn't about hiding malicious links exactly. It's about making legitimate websites, actual real sites,
Right.
display fake information to unsuspecting users. It's a sophisticated search parameter injection attack, and its subtlety, that's what makes it pretty dangerous.
Okay, hang on. So instead of sending you to a fake site, they manipulate a real site. How does that even work? That sounds complex.
It's quite ingenious, actually. The new method is bad actors take out advertisements like normal. But these ads lead to actual legitimate websites, the ones you'd normally trust. The trick is in the URL itself. They embed specific values into what are called query parameters.
Right. The stuff in the web address after the question mark. That carries data.
Exactly that stuff. And when a user clicks the ad, they land on the real site. But those query parameters, what do they do?
Yeah, what do they trigger?
Well, that's where the vulnerability lies. Once the website loads, if it's not built securely, those query parameters can force the legitimate site to display fake information.
Whoa.
The critical flaw is that the website system isn't sanitizing these parameters before it just displays them to the user. So for example, imagine a website has a search bar or maybe a little box that shows a contact number, and it pulls that info dynamically from the URL parameters. The malicious query parameter can inject, say, a fake phone number right into that legitimate display area on the real site.
So I'm looking at, say, bankofrealtrust.com, the actual site. But maybe in the contact section, a fake phone number suddenly appears looking totally official. Because of the ad I clicked.
Precisely. That's the kind of deception we're talking about. It's deeply tricky.
And the scam that follows that, what's the goal?
Yeah, so this whole bypass, it's designed to trick unaware users into calling that phone number, the one the bad actors control. And from there, it usually kicks off a standard scam phone call process, trying to convince the user to hand over sensitive info bank details, logins, or maybe transfer money. It really is a search parameter injection attack because the scammer crafts that malicious URL to embed their fake number right into the real site's functionality, making it look genuine.
Okay, so given that Google Ads are the delivery mechanism here used to get users to these manipulated sites, who's ultimately responsible for stopping this? Is it Google's problem or the websites themselves?
That's a key question, right?
Okay.
And according to the research from Malwarebytes Labs, the perspective is, while Google Ads are used to link users to these dodgy URLs, the actual onus to prepare and repair for these kinds of parameter injection attacks, it falls primarily on the targeted website's shoulders.
Ah, okay. So the website needs to protect itself from taking bad instructions from a URL.
Exactly. Websites need to build this possibility into their user threat models. They have to implement robust input sanitization, basically check everything coming in via those URL parameters really carefully before displaying it. Don't just trust it blindly.
That perspective definitely shifts the focus. So, the hope for the future then is really to see companies rolling out better protections on their websites for handling these malicious query injections.
That's the critical step forward. It's all about building more resilient web applications. Apps that anticipate and defend against these subtle but clearly effective manipulation tactics. When websites actively bake this kind of defense into their security models and their development practices, we'll definitely see better protection for all of us.
So, wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you, our listener? We've peeled back the layers on that sensational 16 billion passwords headline. Turns out it was mostly hype and old data. We looked at old vulnerabilities like that Linux kernel bug that stubbornly linger and still pose a very real threat today because they're actively exploited. And we explored these clever new ways attackers are manipulating seemingly legitimate online spaces, using tricks like query parameter injection via ads.
Yeah, the common thread weaving through all of this. It's the constant need for vigilance and really critical thinking, whether it's questioning a shocking headline that feels like it's playing on fear, or understanding how even a link to a trusted site could potentially be weaponized to show you fake info. Staying informed is just our best defense. The digital world keeps changing, and, well, so do the tactics of those looking to exploit it.
It really makes you consider, doesn't it? As our digital lives get more integrated, more convenient, how do we balance that ease, that instant information, with the constant need to verify, to question, to understand the hidden mechanics sometimes at play? Your digital safety so often relies on your ability to spot those subtle signs of manipulation, even when they pop up on platforms you inherently trust. Stay curious and stay safe out there.